Racing is part of TAG Heuer and Heuer's DNA. Reaching as far back as the 1960s, the defining moments of the brand have either happened on the racetrack or in a race of some kind. And one of the most important races that Heuer and eventually TAG Heuer partook in was the invention of the first automatic chronograph. It's a story that watch aficionados love to retell. While in 1969, Omega was busy sending a manual wound caliber to the moon, Heuer, Buren, Breitling, and Dubois-Duprat were all in one group racing against time to beat Zenith to make the first automatic chronograph. Now, unbeknown to most, there was also Seiko participating in Japan. However, this often is the less publicized side of this particular story. But bringing it back to the El Primero versus what was the consortium that was led by Heuer, the product of that was the first automatic modular chronograph. Up until then, there had been modular chronographs in the past, there had been automatic watches, but combining the two hadn't happened. And while Zenith pursued an approach of having an integrated automatic chronograph, this consortium decided to pool their resources to create the first modular automatic chronograph. And they did so with the Caliber 11 and its evolution, the Caliber 12. And to launch this new movement, they decided to create a new line, the Monaco. A name that is now synonymous, of course, with TAG Heuer. It's one of their most iconic models, but of course it shares its name with the most prestigious Formula One race ever, the Monaco Grand Prix. And up until this day, TAG Heuer is still a sponsor of the Monaco Grand Prix, and that's why you see it so prominently featured on that Grand Prix specifically, more so than a lot of the Rolex logos that you see on most other Formula One races. The Monaco was a complete departure from what Heuer had been making at the time, with its big square shape, 39 millimeters, which for the late 1960s and early 70s was huge. It was thick, and what was the most interesting was that pusher setup. It has the crown on the 9 o'clock side, while it has the pushers over on the 3 o'clock side. This is how you know that this is that Caliber 12, which was the modular chronograph, because they actually turned around the Buren micro rotor movement to the reverse side, and then they put the chronograph module on the bottom. This is actually a departure from what happens in modern modular chronographs, where normally the module is on top of the base automatic movement. But in this case, they used a micro rotor automatic where the rotor itself is sandwiched somewhere between the dial and the module itself. When you take this watch out of its case, because it is of course a front loader, you notice this odd configuration, but it gives you a sign that you have something pretty special on the inside just by looking at the pusher arrangement. This also avoids the common theme that happens with modular chronographs, where you see that the pushers are offset in terms of height compared to the regular winding crown. By having these on a separate side, it right away shows you that you have something distinctive and something special, and at the time it was a great way for Heuer to show that they were producing something that was completely unlike any other sports chronograph on the market at the time. But of course, TAG Heuer is always great when it comes to nostalgia, and they've preserved the Monaco line ever since the mid-90s when they reintroduced it. It's funny to think, but actually throughout most of the 80s and 90s, the Monaco wasn't actually a production model. But when they reintroduced it, they went back to the basics and make sure they kept things as true to form, while then using it as a springboard for tons of experimental calibers as well, similar to what its history was. Now when we look at the Monaco line, you instantly recognize the 2019 Monaco 02. This features TAG Heuer's in-house movement, the Caliber Heuer 02, and this was an integrated chronograph. So that's why you see that the pushers on the modern ones are on the correct side along with the crown. They're not offset like the modular version. Now there were variations of the modular ones using an ETA-based caliber, however these aren't the flagship of the model. The flagship models are the ones equipped with the Heuer 02 on the inside, with 80 hours of power reserve, courtesy of TAG Heuer's in-house automatic chronograph. But right away when looking at these two, you can see their racing pedigree. The color schemes, the way the dials are laid out, extremely legible. What's interesting is that with the 02, they've actually hidden the running seconds. It's still visible there at the 6 o'clock. However, it doesn't feature a prominent subdial like on most chronographs. Instead, the focus is of course on the minutes and hours counters, similar to the original featured on the Calibers 11 and 12. But as always, this brings us to the question, which is the better one? Would you prefer to have the newer version that still looks like the old one but has a thoroughly modern caliber that's much easier to service compared to the complex but historically significant Caliber 12? It really is a case of preference and budget, because these Heuer Monacos command a much higher price because of their historical significance versus the modern TAG Heuer ones. But the modern ones carry the benefit of modern build quality, ease of servicing, and in the case of this, an 80-hour power reserve. It all comes down to preference and budget at the end of the day, but what is amazing is the way that TAG Heuer has been able to capture the magic of this original Monaco with their more modern version while still staying true to its original core as being a racing chronograph. But let us know in the comments below which of these is your favorite. And just for good measure, which dial variation would you opt, and would you go for a bracelet or a leather strap? This particular Heuer Monaco is actually equipped on the original bracelet, so it is very, very thin, very, very light and flimsy, but that carries a lot of the charm as well that comes with vintage watches. Meanwhile, this modern one is available on a nice solid bracelet that mimics this design, or you can get it on the leather strap as seen here. So we'd love to know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Of course, if you like this video, then make sure you like it and share it. If you want to see more videos about watches, then make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell as well so you know when the next video comes out. If you want to see more about TAG Heuer chronographs, then make sure you check our TAG Heuer playlist. And if you're interested in either of these or any of our selection of watches, then make sure you check the links in the description below. But thanks for joining us on this quick exploration of one of the most historically significant Heuer and/or TAG Heuer watches, and we'll check you on the next video.